Greetings and salutations, everyone. How we doing? It's been a hell of a few days since we last picked up with our coterie, and as always, I want you all to understand from the fullness of my heart and all of my many thoughts along the way that I appreciate the time that we get to share. This means a lot to me, being able to play, being able to share this time with you all, and so I want you all to know that I am very, very thankful for this opportunity. I would also like to let you all know that this is officially In the Shadow of the White City, Season 5. The Lashes of an Abandoned Train. When we last left our coterie, when we last left the subject of our heroic fantasies, when we left the heroes of our hearts and the enemies of our dashed hopes and expectations, they were meeting in a desolate, abandoned space just inside of Seferino's barony. The space is usually the place where folks living, dead, and all states in between have escaped for assignation, a quiet moment of public canoodling, or far, far more illicit things. In the rush to make a meeting, to get to the bottom of things, to hatch their own trap and suss out the enemy between Drew and Sasha and drive home the point that shit just will not be allowed, another trap was sprung. And while Seth had been screaming like John the Baptist in the wild that the Lord was coming, that it was obvious that the end times as we knew them were over, that there's no way that Faustina could not possibly know, and if she did not know, what did that say about Sasha and the whole kid and caboodle? Unfortunately, as they find that when Faustina and Sasha moving across the water as if they are in fact descendants of Christ themselves, able to walk and tap dance upon the water's surface, it is clear that Faustina not only knows, but is in cahoots, has aligned, is utilizing the business venture towards her own ends. And as the mist and the trees abounding take on a rictus life of their own, the coterie has several options ahead of them, and what they intend to do is far more important than what they might actually accomplish. So, starting in alphabetical order, just watching as the world around you becomes a horror of things that should not be alive, moving as if they are, as if things that are only superficially felt. The slick and slime of the mist around you takes on infernal, supernal strength and begins restraining, attempting to pry clothing and limbs from your bodies. What is it that you are intending to do?
You said alphabetical, right?
Yes.
Looking towards welfare to make sure that he is still close, as he's probably stronger and could get them pulled free easier. And then she's also checking the other direction with Zach to see how far Zach is ahead of them, because they had let Zach go a little first, and then they were going to follow in. So there is some probable distance between them and Zach.
So just to make sure that I am fully aware, Dee is attending to stick next to Lothar and look towards Zach.
Nick's the one there looking towards Zach, but yeah, not going to let herself be captured, obviously.
Fornicating with the intentions of ascertaining the veracity of their conclusions.
Second clarifying question. Does Muzan know who's who out of the two, Faustina and Sasha?
Well, he's seen Sasha, so yes, he would know what Sasha looks like, remember.
Third question, does he know what clan Sasha is or no?
It could have been easily bandied about. I'm not sure if Zach actually elicited exactly what clan she might be.
Okay. In that case, Muzan is going to do exactly 4 things. 1, he's going to throw up prowess. Number 2, he's going to throw up feral weapons. Number 3, he's going to soaring leap. And number 4, he's aiming for one of their heads.
Okay. Excellent. Of those 4 things, which is most focused upon?
Definitely the aiming for the heads.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
The other 2, I think, will require rouse checks, correct?
Yes, I was just double checking that myself. Give me a quick second.
This is going to get a little bit pricey.
Yeah.
Hungrier? Very hungrier. That means Muzan's at 5 hunger.
Yes, that will be interesting. All right, excellent. So while we have that, prowess does not require. Oh yeah, it does have a cost. No rouse, but there you can keep it on once activated. All right, that's good to know. And while that is happening, while the whispers of the beast become everything but whispers, while they take on a life of their own and become a reality as real as gravity itself for Muzan. Seth, watching the mist begin to rip, claw, and tear at you, tearing away certain portions of yourself you would rather not lose. Well, not specifically you yourself, but other members of your group that are near at hand. What is it that are Seth's intention?
So, Seth has a go-to move when things are about to get real, and I'm assuming this is all happening simultaneously. But he's going to rouse for blood potency.
Okay.
And with gestures, because he still thinks they're being sly. He has not seen Muzan rip loose of his obfuscation and leap 30 feet yet, so he's still trying to be sly. So he's going to do blood potency and motion the Bruja boys and Frost to close the circle so that they come in I don't think we can get a full 90 degrees because we'd have to cross water, but as close to the far side of Faustina and Sasha as we can, from Diazak and Low. But
okay.
So he is still trying to be tactical. So he's going to rouse, and life sucks. Hold on. Don't mark that. And then I've got to, what is it? Resolve. 6. No. So, yes. Damn it. You know what? I'm going to burn willpower. Damn it. Okay.
All right.
I'll take the win and shut up. So he increases blood potency by 1 and is moving to the far side of Faustina, hopefully with the Bruja boys and Frost in tow.
All right, sounds like a plan. And Zach, what are your intentions? Realizing that Drew has been staked, realizing that Sasha and Faustina are walking across water while the mist and the trees about you are attempting to do the same thing that has been done to Drew.
Okay, so at the cost of Zach gaining 2 hunger, I am assuming he managed to successfully throw up fleetness.
Yes.
Okay, Zach's main priority is to get himself out of staking range. And once he does that, his second priority... Wait... Don't remember if Zach was given a weapon or not. Was he?
Frost offered weapons, but Seth absconded with them.
Well, in that case, Zach's just gonna try to get himself out of staking range before he does anything else.
All right. That being the case, just to make sure that I have all of the pesky little details all worked out. Dean, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your dexterity athletics and you receive a +1?
What is happening?
I think he's trying to figure out how many dice exactly the forest is going to use to kill us.
If it's any less than 20, I will be disappointed.
Well, Thirst, I think, has a built-in maximum of 50, so...
Actually can go as high as 100 as long as you don't enter in hunger. But my small bit of technical difficulties aside, here's a situation. Looking over our various roles. The standard DC for a extremely tense situation is the standard 3+1 because there are several factors assisted. That gives us a standard DC of 4 is what we're looking at. Now, the mechanics aside, in situations where like this, where everything is happening nearly exactly at once, when the night conspires with that lizard brain at the back of our head that tells us that in the darkness there is danger, when knowing that beneath the unbeating hearts of our heroes, of our protagonists, are in fact monsters, seeing their equal, if particularly more focused monsters, is a moment for pause. Angels would stop at the threshold or seek escape, whereas all the fools that are our protagonists, those creatures and monsters of our most dearly loved hearts, leap into action. Seth and the gangrels assigned through Seferino, assisting Lothair, circling wide. The howls of pain, at first one, then the other, and Seth pauses just as he makes it roughly to the 1 o'clock position versus Faustina and Sasha's 12. He realizes that Frost's howl is by far the loudest, his growl of anger dying on the eerily quiet mist that feels it sliding along the skin, feels as if it was pulling every loose item, every thing it can get its grubby little spiritual hands on away from Seth. He realizes that Frost has been staked. For those who have not had the opportunity of being staked, of being placed in that state of unending wakefulness and death, it is everything that many Catholics believe purgatory is. Aware, unable to rest, unconscious but unable to dream. Stuck exactly on the finite line of existing and being wiped from all existence in one fell swoop. And that prison, that torture, that pain is what the howl escaping Frost's very wolf-like form signifies. It's not the first time that he has been tortured. It has not been the first time where he is in a half state of being, but it is by far the worst because he is immediately aware that the trees have cut off most paths of escape for Seth. And while he believes in the coterie, while he loves each member in his own way, Seth has spent years as his friend, his confidant, his domitor. And watching as Seth's path of escape is closed off is by far the most painful moment for him, unable to act. And even though Frost is unable to act, the tree limb piercing him as if he was nothing more than a moth on display in a Lepidopterus books or glass cages. Muzan breaks invisibility, leaping into the sky. There's a thing that was touted when Superman, the Christopher Reeve original, was released. You will believe a man can fly was a tagline. And in this moment, you will believe that Muzan can fly. Because soaring through the sky, this fierce former combatant of sacked war and far, far darker things descends like a demon from heaven, a multifaceted specter of belief, pain. And as he lands just shy of his goal of taking Faustina, his animalistic appendages, his fingers elongated, his teeth looking as if they are in fact saber-toothed tiger. It looks vicious until the water swallows both him and Sasha. While Zach, using every bit of grace, every bit of speed, every bit of self-preservational ideas they have, reaches nearly to the tree line before a branch lances through his leg. Then the other lances through his stomach, And finally, as the mist closes on him, instead of attempting to tear and paw and rip things away, it seeks to crawl inside. Through his ears, through his nose, through his mouth, through every orifice that it can seep into. And as that thick, semi-permeable mist fills him, Lothair pushes Dia to the ground. It is the most callous, cruel thing a person could do. It is the most ungentlemanly thing, and the fact that it comes out of nowhere is by far the worst blow to Dia's ego and pride. This was a gentleman. This was a person who spouted poetry simply breathing. This was a man who understood that the power of the sword is in the sheath. That being a gentle man is not a statement that one is not dangerous. Being a gentle man, a Renaissance mind, does not mean that one can't be savage or cruel or the most dangerous person one knows. And as such, the savagery with which Dia is shoved to the ground is all the more surprising because it's directed at her. And as she rights herself, glancing up at the long, tall drink of water that is Lothair, she realizes why. Several limbs from the trees, several dozen gallons of mist consume him. The limbs piercing lungs and heart and various other thoracic structures that would, in any other semblance, signify death. But being as Lothair, much like all of the others, are in fact dead, it merely means the torment of torpor. It merely means lack of movement but full awareness, the lancing pain, the cloying restrictions of things pouring themselves inside. And Faustina, walking on water, silently gloating as her mouth and her face splits, almost bisecting it in half as her smile continues right back to her ears, and her top portion of her face, from her top lip to her hairline, opens, revealing row upon row of bone-gnashing teeth. And as the water consumes Muzan, as death follows his splashdown, what is it that we are seeking to do?
Who can still move?
Seth, Dia, Zach, and Muzan can attempt to save himself from the cold grip of death that is being consumed by all of that dark, dank water.
Can he try to drag Faustina down with him? If he's already taken Sasha down.
He is in the dark murkiness of the water. He knows that he successfully connected with Sasha and knocked her free of whatever oral energies were allowing her to enjoy Faustina's ability to walk on water. But without belaboring a point too succinctly, he can either assure that Sasha is no longer able to continue resurrecting night after night, save himself, or attempt to swim high enough to attempt to reach for Faustina. He can't do all three.
Oh. I just want to make sure I understand. Is the water freezing him? Is he going to not be able to move if he does one of the other two options, or?
Yes, unfortunately, one of the many things that people fail to realize about the Midwest is that we do get subpolar temperature, and our water is frozen over until roughly late April to early March. It is 100% below freezing, and every second is akin to being stuck in a polar vortex. And we know how dangerous that is for kindred. You don't have the heat, you don't have the circulation. It is being frozen solid, second by second.
Okay. In that case, Muzan's choice is to try and bring Faustina down with him. Preferably skewer his claws through the ankles, pull her down, and... well, he is pretty hungry. Might as well satisfy some of that hunger while he's down there.
Excellent. Good idea. Well, we have Muzan's intentions. Dia, watching this unfold, what is it that is on Dia's mind?
Excellent. She wants to her feet, but stay low enough to not be, I guess, the target. Did we watch Sasha get snacked and go down? I figured that she saw her disappear. I don't quite know what she would do. There's a lot. She's not very physical, so yeah, I'm a little stuck there. Hold on for me.
Oh, I'm seeing two possibilities here. One is for Zach to attempt to break free. And second, would it be possible to allow Zach to enter a frenzy?
What do you mean, allow Zach to enter a frenzy? His friends are falling left and right. His boyfriend, well, former lover, has been staked by the third of his throuple. The third of his throuple has been beset upon by the very spirit of vengeance and death. His entirety of what is inside him is being filled with something that is not him. There is pain lancing through him, so I'm not quite sure what you mean by allow him to frenzy.
Oh. Basically, I think this is the type of situation where he'd just completely freak out and sheer terror. I think it's called Rot Shrek or Terror Frenzy. What are those two things?
Yes, Rot Shrek. It is a overwhelming sense and need to escape. There's nothing that could stand between the full efforts of the character and all pass away from what they view as whatever the danger is in that moment.
So basically what I'm proposing is for Zach to enter Rot Shrek.
Okay. Okay. Watching for the second time, Frost all but died. in front of
Teeth?
the screams of pain coming.
Towards Faustina, and I'm gonna shoot her.
Oh, okay, excellent. So, Dia, have you decided an intention?
Yeah. I'm gonna do my best to free Lothair. But I also have Cat's Grace, so it can help with dodging things.
Okay. Give me one quick second here. I don't have the notes for which system is so while I do a small bit of research and keep you all busy with my lovely scatting with no voice and a terribly scratchy throat, Muzan, would you be so kind as to roll your dexterity and athletics? Seth, would you be so kind as to roll your dexterity and firearm? Zach, would you be so kind as to roll 1/3 your humanity and your unspent willpower? And would you be so kind, Dia, would you be so kind to go ahead and roll your dexterity and athletics to dodge, or strength and athletics to free Lothair? You may add your celerity dots to your attempts to dodge, but you may not add them to your attempts for strength.
Oh crap.
Clarifying, prowess still applies in this instance, or no? Actually, no, wait, this is Dex, and never mind.
You were wondering if you were going to be able to get into Frenzy there, Zach.
And there is my answer.
All right, mechanical keyboard for the win. The lovely sounds of my typing. So, there's a commonly used aphorism: when it rains, it pours. It's one of those situations where, while it is bad form to kick an opponent while they're down, that considerations of bad form don't apply to fate. They don't apply to celestial forces. What is the definition of good as something that has lived beyond all recognition of humankind's consciousness and their consensus? What is moral to a force of nature? It is the fairest, most unbiased thing there is, because all things die. All things end. And while we, as a society from days long past, days of yore, believe that death is in fact the end, that it is the soul moving on, that this world, these concerns therein are no longer of any value to the soul that persists. At least that is our common parlance and our common understanding. It's touted by most religions, it's touted by laymen, it's touted by everyone that you have a soul instead of you are a living soul. Kindred learned this lesson usually upon age, that their soul, that their presence is very much locked into the blood. The blood, the vitae, very much is life. And it contains the entire measure of what the kindred could ever hope to be, and all that they had accumulated in terms of experience and understanding that they exist. And for many, that road is over. That travail along the path towards immortality is in fact over. It is ended. There's a pall that falls over kindred once they reach a point of torpor or hunger, where the animating force of their soul ceases to have any power over their physical form, and there's a sundering of it. All of the years of their life is wrought across their skin, their bones, and every facet of themselves, usually depending on how old that kindred is, anywhere from a few hours to a few seconds. And as Dia has the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end as she attempts to break first one branch, then the other, and finally is nearly pulling Lothair free of the several piercing limbs. The hairs on the back of her neck stand on end, the awareness of the world around her and how wrong things are settle in. And she ducks and crouches, looking around for where that feeling is coming from, where the impending doom. And she hears a gunshot in the dark. And she hears a snarling, gargling, drowning sound from where Muzan splashed down. And she sees flashlights behind her, or more specifically, light sources, because those flashlights are a little small. They kind of look like laser pointers, and they're moving something towards, and she crouches just in time to watch as Lothair's tailored pants leg seems to be lighter, as the shoes no longer are filled with the weight behind the necessary of a foot. She follows the clothing up the well-tailored London fog of a dark blue, which hung and draped itself as if it was painted across his shoulders and draped across that surprisingly wide, strong chest. She looks towards the beard that has been a signal that the evening would work out, at least have a small high point somewhere along the way. and those crystal blue eyes that seem to stare into the very soul of every entity that he spoke with, only to find the pale, dust-like remnant, a faint ghost-like statue slowly being pulled away by the mist, torn asunder by the branches, which are now still reaching towards Dia. While behind her, the gurgling, splashing as Muzan leaped or attempted to leap forward and latch onto Faustina, the icy waves, the pull of Sasha, who, surprisingly, even missing 4 3-inch deep chunks from her face, is attempting to claw her way up out of the icy grips of death, because that is what this water is for every kindred, death. Even if that means holding on to the very thing that attempted to wipe her from existence, she will pull herself free. The tenacity in her grip is a testament to the will to survive. It is also, unfortunately for Muzan, a anchor around him, dragging him further into that murky blackness that signifies the end of all things. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, the closest to death that he has ever allowed himself to be. And as the vitae flowing freely in the water about them, as the missing portions of her face from where his fingers attempted to separate every bit of bone and cartilage from the next, the vitae, as she attempts to mend, the vitae that is demanding her attempt to survive, calls to him, even above the stench of this cold, dead water. Which means we're going to roll 1/3 your humanity and your remaining willpower. Your DC is 3. And while that is happening, while that struggle for life and continued existence is in fact happening, Seth curses because there are several things that he's good at. Several things that he has been very, very good at. Very, very good at. And that is the ending of other things' lives. That is pulling always round down. There is the ending of things' lives. There are the finding of truths. There is the collection of knowledge he should not have access to. And he has repeatedly been able to succeed at ending lives. He has been able to succeed at finding more information than he has any right to own or be aware of. And in this moment, he is sure that a well-placed shot, a distractional kill shot, should be enough to break whatever it is that Faustina is actually doing. Whatever Faustina is beneath all of the petty appearances that he's seen, or all of the quiet, demure looks when they were together during the party, all of the lies that she has clearly been spilling and spinning this entire time, a kill shot should put it all to an end. And as the shot flies free, trees move into the way, and Faustina makes ground fall. And the frenzied pace at which the trees and mist responded and reacted to her unspoken will increases. It is as if touching the earth gives her more connection to the thing she is controlling. And just as he is cursing the luck of it all, the pain of it all, he glimpses out of his peripheral vision, targeting laser sights moving through the trees, seeking targets quietly and somehow unimpeded by the trees and the mist. And as recollection dawns, Zach, there's always been a portion of Zach that believed that there was a strength in madness. There was a strength to an emotional dissonance so strong that it could shut out the world. It could give you the ability to pull all-nighters. It can give the ability to write the great American album. It could There is a strength in the madness of pure devotion. And right now, Zach's pure devotion is about continued existence, giving themselves over to the very real fact that while they have faced down death, while they have faced down an ungodly number of instances where death was all but a promise, this is by far the absolute worst. Drew clearly never stopped loving Zach and was staked for it. Drew never, despite all of his failings, all of the passionate vicissitudes of emotionality, never sought to betray Zach. Sasha never stopped seeking revenge, never stopped seeking to balance the scales from being forced from their bed and their heart. Who cares about Faustina? No one cares about the big bad wolf or the wicked witch of the east, west, north, south. None of that matters. She's an extenuating circumstance, but she is by far the worst thing of it all. Because of Sasha's need for revenge, because of Sasha's broken heart, all of this was possible. All of this was made true. All of the horrors that you hear about crazy exes has come raining down on Zach. And there's but one thing that will solve the pain. There's one thing that will make this right. And that is escape. Exit stage left. Even as fast and clearly dedicated as possible, Zach pulls himself from the limbs of the trees, attempting to hold them. Zach hacks and coughs, spewing up vitae-laced mist as he breaks branches, as he stomps through the pain, seeing there, just at the edge of his vision, these bouncing green and red lights, these small laser light shows that should not be here in the public, but doesn't stop him. The curiosity doesn't draw him, doesn't cause any of his steps to falter as he fights through, bites through, tears through, and makes his way as far from this possible. There's a moment when he loses track of time. There's a moment when everything fades into a blur of just motion with one goal in mind. And as that moment slowly ebbs away from him, he finds himself in the parking lot, free of the trees, covered in blood, and tasting mineral oil laced blood. There are several holes in his person, not from the tree limbs, but from bullets. There are pieces of things left in his mouth, and he is sure that his face is caked in not just his own vitae, but others' blood. And as everything settles in that particular moment, we return back around to our initiating, starting incident. Our Senator, Cordia White, as realization dawns as to how deadly the situation is, and realization dawns as to why, instead of being beside Lothair, pinned and struggling in the air, they are able to look up and realize what is taking place. What is Dia's intention?
He doesn't know that Zach ran away. So I'm guessing their best bet, though, now that Lothair is gone, is to head back the way they came towards the parking lot, and hope that the others know to run.
Excuse me. Well, intentions being what they are, the pathway to action moves on as you're dragged under, watching as Faustina makes ground fall, knowing that there is Vitae there attempting to use you as purchase to escape death. What is it that lays in Muzan's heart and mind, his intentions of moving forward?
He really should go to shore, but at his current hunger, how much control of his own actions does he actually have right now?
You need blood, you need Vitae. Nothing short of that will give you the semblance and conscience to do something relatively intelligent that does not pertain to the collection of it. You get a choice. You can attempt to feed on yourself, or you can attempt to feed on the nearest blood source at hand.
He's going to whip around and sink his fangs into what's her face's neck. Sasha's neck.
All right. That is a lovely intention. I'm sure that is not exactly what Sasha was hoping for. And Seth?
So there are laser pointers coming through the trees
Yes.
from the direction of the parking lot, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Am I completely hemmed in?
Not completely hemmed in, no. Very close to it. The trees are still moving, attempting to scrabble for purchase and attempting to pierce everything that is you with their limbs and various other orifices.
Well, I do not have the skills to stop them from trying that, but I do have the skills to keep them busy, so I can slow down where the laser pointers are coming from. So I will fire a shot in that general direction.
All right, sounds like a plan. When in doubt, blast them all.
Well, when in doubt, force them into cover and maybe something exciting will happen later.
And Zach, standing in the parking lot, struggling to breathe, because the body doesn't realize that it's dead in this moment. It is in fact overstimulated. It is in fact thankful to have continued existence, and for a fleeting moment believes that that existence is actually life. So as the chest rises and falls and the panting breath is there, the attempt to pull in more oxygen, more unneeded oxygen, to get the taste buds free of the drying blood and bits of flesh. Realizing that somewhere in there, as more shots are fired, you hear gunfire from there between those trees. Somewhere in there. What is it that is Zach's intention? Because for the first time in several months, in several years, since as long as Zach can remember, there's no little voice at the back of Zach's head demanding, "Feed me, Zach." Yeah, none of that. None of that pounding on the bars of the jail cell. You don't hear Elvis Presley's hip-shaking voice singing about jailhouse rocking. You don't hear that crossword blues playing every time you catch sight of anything that has a pulse. There is a quietude there that is unnerving, because as long as you've been immortal, there's been a voice at the back of your head.
Okay, so I'm assuming that Zach got his fill and is now back in control of himself.
That would be a fair assumption.
Okay, so he's now turning to try to figure out where the gunshot came from, but he is not about to go back in, considering he barely made it out. Instead, he's trying to think of some other way he can help. And what options are available?
Okay, which means sometimes go ahead and roll your wits plus awareness. And while that roll is happening, Dio, would you go ahead and roll your dexterity plus athletics, adding your celerity dots. And while that's happening, Muzan, would you be so kind as to roll your strength plus brawl? And Seth, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your dexterity and fire? I'm sorry, Muzan, what was that?
I was going to ask if grappling is applying in this case.
If you have a specialty, yes.
I do.
Excellent.
I refuse. How?
Fate has it out for you, bud. Don't worry. It's fine. Let it happen. Let it happen. Just go quietly into the dark. It's okay.
You are a bad man.
All right, let's see what results do we have. Oh my goodness. All right, so we've already belabored fate. We've already kicked their door and let them know that we know they are out there looking for our failures and laughing at our successes. We already understand that. However, fate is not done with us yet. Fate is not done toying with our emotions, twisting the knife that it's buried in our back through our chest. And injury to insult though it is, Muzan is a machine of death. He has lived as a specter, a hand, a tool of death far longer than most kindred have bothered to actually live, to experience the night. He has tasted of kings and paupers. He has danced across nearly every taboo known to kindred kind at one point or another. And only through careful, applied effort to re-attain some semblance of connective tissue to humankind at large has he managed to exist as he currently is. However, in these moments, the human, the man, is nothing to the might of the beast. In blood, Vitae calls and demands a response and an answer. Unfortunately, in this night, in the darkness of this moment, he is not the only monster present. He is not the only given over to the drives of the beast. And as he whirls, wrestling, twisting, contorting, his teeth somehow seeming longer, his fingers, things of steel-laced death, grabbing hold of that which he sought to simply destroy, he now seeks to divest of every semblance of Vitae. And as he whirls and twirls and sinks his fangs in, so too do they. It's funny when you connect with another person. It's funny finding another person who has a similar interest or similar hobbies as yourself. It's funny, and it's a bit of fellowship and understanding, at least in regards to the shared activity. Friendships, marriages, relationships of all sorts begin with a simple understanding of a shared interest. And in this moment, There's no stronger kinship. There's no stronger understanding of a shared interest as two monsters seeking to drink the other dry. And as he wraps his arms around Sasha with every attempt to squeeze every ounce of vitae into his gullet, she too sinks her fangs deep and wraps her arms around, pulling Muzan into herself. And as each slurp and draw and drain and strain to pull every iota of vitae into their own being, there's a dawning of recognition. There is a clear understanding and a vision of a kindred soul. Two ships passing in the night, a small, brief glimpse from one deck to the next. A wave, smile, a smirk of understanding. And in the dark, two monsters connect the only way monsters can. With death and the end of immortality on the table, they sink beneath the waves. While Seth turns and fires from the hip, his shot going wide. However, no one knows where that shot is coming from because it's always the one you don't hear that gets you. At least that's what the movies say. And so natural defensive maneuvers take hold. Those lights go out. You can hear the torsos hitting the ground as crawling begins to happen. You can hear people crouching, driving low so that they are low beneath the average sight lines for getting a shot off. And the humor of being a kindred, a creature of the darkness, settles in because it is not a natural or unnatural ability of kindred to see in the dark. A predator of the nighttime, prey to all the secrets the dark can keep from them. It is laughable. It is another instance of kismet and all of its relations playing the cruelest of pranks. Because in the quietude, in the sound of cloth scraping across various surfaces, in the bending, creaking of tree limbs that are seeking to further divest kindred of their lives, there is the raspy, giggling chuckle of Faustina's echoing off of nothing. Her voice shouldn't carry, but it does. The light, raspy laugh, taunting and demanding redress, but the trees moving of their own volition, or more accurately of her volition, providing cover to her and her forces. There's a feeling when the walls are closing in, when paths of escape are being closed off. And that feeling is one of the things that has kept, or had kept, Seth and Frost as alive as they once were. That feeling of getting the fuck out of Dodge has been the driving factor and facet for their survival more times than they can count. However, in this case, the feeling seems to be omnipresent, both behind and forward, left and right, up and down. It is as if the world itself is closing off, as if the night is growing darker by the second. And as the night moves ever on, at the behest of the thief of all ways that is time, Zach is in the parking lot and realizes that as they swap their hand, as they think and cipher and try to wrap their head around the situation, because it's awfully quiet, too quiet in their own head to think. There's not that prod. There's not that running soundtrack at the back of their head. It is emptiness as far as the mind's eye can see. And the limb that they're holding, which is not theirs, is just more dead waste. They toss it over their shoulder and look towards the other vehicles in the parking lot and realize that there are exactly 4 additional vehicles here than when they first arrived. They're still on. The headlights are off. The dome lights are off, but they're still running. As if whoever they were, they expected to be in and out, to use a shock and awe approach. And then Zach bothers to look around the parking lot, and they realize that from the tree line across that small bit of open space to the parking lot are littered pieces of humans. And while Zach knows that death happens, there's but one being possibly responsible for the ending of those formerly living entities. And the mess left there on the lawn, like someone littering along the side of the highway, it is disgusting to their eye. There is a cold part of Zach that says it could have at least been arranged artistically. It could have at least been stacked, maybe like firewood. That's just sloppy. There's no merit there at all. And as Zach is looking on, considering the handiwork of their beast, Dia bounds through the trees like a devil released from hell, the tree limbs trailing behind her, seeming to stretch and reach and grab. And as Dia leaps free of the tree line, one of the trees lances their leg, pinning them to the ground. And it's 41 after the hour. I will see you guys back here at 51 after. And we will pick up right from this moment.
Meanie.
Hey folks, sorry about my tardy. Unfortunately, I'm back. I do apologize about the delay. Anyone still around?
Yep. I just had to yell at Craig to keep him from disconnecting.
Yes.
And I'm thinking I probably incurred quite a few stains by letting Zach flip.
Well, sometimes fate answers and responds. Sometimes it, does what it does. We will deal with the fallout in due time, in a dramatically appropriate moment, as realization dawns as to why the space between Zach's ears is far less conversational as usual. All right. Dia, did you make it back?
Yep, I am here.
All right. So when we were so distracted by my need for a small respite, Dia had broken through the trees. Literally made it just to the edge and just leaping free. The speed granted by the curse of their blood and the skill at being able to run across raindrops had granted them a bit of daylight, a bit of freedom from the encroaching, dangerously motivated trees. Unfortunately, that grace, like all things, has an end, has a limit. And as Dia reached the limit of that grace and tore free of the tree line, they were not so willing to give up their gift, the gift of their Dia's potential end of forever. And so, lancing forward, the tree limb moving between the very bone of the thigh, one of the strongest bones in the body, pinning Dia to the ground. As the pain tears through Dia, she is able to see a blood-stained angel. Rarely is Zach's hair ever actually done. However, the proliferation of blood and various bits of formerly living humans allows it to look as if it is well coiffed and slicked back. The madness that dances in Zach's eyes, because of their musical brilliance, is somehow abated. Even at this distance, that mirthful glint and glimmer of light can be found absent in Zach's eye, as they are covered head to toe in the fluids of other formerly living beings. The sound of car engines gently idling can be heard, the creaking, cracking, crawling sound of the branches moving amongst themselves, attempting to further make purchase in Dia and pull her back into them can be heard. The gunshots in the distance can be heard. It is from where you and Zach are, the sound of footfalls and hurried crawling can be heard, as well as the faint static electricity of walkie-talkies and earpieces and all of the modern trappings of would-be technological urban hunters. And to make all those things so much worse, the quiet, raspy moving between the trees of Faustina's giggling mirth at the present situation. It is the gloating laughter of someone who knows that the end is near, but not for them. So what is Dia's intentions? What does Dia actually say, if anything, besides, oh shit!
So out. Dia uses the foot that's not pinned to kick the branch, attempting to break it and break free from the ground. And if you've got to crawl, she's trying to get away from the tree line towards Zach. And looking at Zach, it's not your color, darling. And trying to just keep themselves seen in the madness that ensued.
There are a few moments that rest easily in the mind of being this close to actual death. Because with each slurp, with each draining inhalation of all that is Sasha, there is an equal and reactive draining slurp, a mutually assured or at least attempted destruction, a madness inherent that the beast is here for. It is literally sitting on your shoulder. Well, this is fucking great. Who's gonna give in first? I got dibs on the hungry little girl. She seems real vengeful. What are we gonna do? Muzan, did we lose you?
Sorry, I just forgot I was muted. I think in this moment he's still trying to satisfy his hunger. So he will once again attempt to divest Sasha of whatever she has left.
All right, excellent. Give that strength and brawl a roll for me, please.
Specialty again or no?
Yes.
All right, Thirstbot. Don't fail me now.
All right. Well, now. That is interesting. Perhaps you should talk to it more often.
It likes the attention, apparently.
Yes, it's very good. And as the shot goes wide, but the result is very apropos to people who have been shot or shot at repeatedly enough to know that they are on the wrong end of someone else's gun. What is it that Seth is attempting to do?
Seth is going to cheat because he's a vampire. I'm going to use heightened senses to try to narrow down where the little bastards are. And I'm going to shoot him again.
Okay, so we're gonna need 2 rolls for that. Just to give us a proper range. Would you be so kind as to? Yep, you already did that. Very nice.
That's ready.
Yep. So go ahead and roll your dexterity and your firearms with a bonus of 1 die.
Hide for me in the dark, little bastard. Oh, for the love of cricket. Hold on. Oh, God damn it.
Better is better. Better is in fact better.
At least this time I hope I, got close.
And Zach, as the gunfire picks up pace, picks up speed, picks up reverberations and echoes, and it begins to sound as if you are in Beirut during the early 80s. You hear and see Dia struggling against powers infernal. The sheer proliferation of the number of trees and branches and limbs seeking to pull Dia back amongst them is enough to trigger every child who grew up watching the original Wizard of Oz on TV before the good old days of Netflix and YouTube and all the like, and where many resulted in having nightmares because of the flying monkeys. Others had nightmares because of the trees seeking to divest Dorothy Gale and all of her friends of their ability to continue moving forward. And much like those children, Zach is very hard pressed to not find the idea of nature seeking to reclaim its dominance as the apex predator of all things. Maddening. The only bit of sanity there is Dia's immediate appraisal of their attire. And Zach must admit that outside of certain shades of red, that red really isn't their color. They do like the auburns, the brighter, slightly less coppery shades of red in their hair. However, on their attire, they predominantly use a little bit of purple here every once in a while, but usually blues and brighter, darker colors that were not in the red family. So their appraisal was actually pretty spot on. They've used lots of shades and hues. They like their attention, but they don't necessarily find being draped all in red soul enriching. It's not their color. What is it they are attempting to do, seeing Dia being swallowed and consumed by the many hundreds of branches reaching towards them and seeking to pull them further as they struggle and kick and fight and are beset by the trees all the same?
Beck's gonna try to get Dia the hell out of there. He's gonna risk himself for her. Because if
So Snap,
he can get himself out of there, he sees no reason why he shouldn't be able to get Dia out.
so snapped back into the moment, grounded by the fact that Dia is being pulled and subsumed. With you and Dia, it will be a strength plus brawl plus 1 for Zach. And Zach, would you be so kind as to roll similarly a strength plus brawl plus 1 for Dia's assistance?
Why does this thing hate me?
You didn't roll hunger, you can re-roll that. Oh, you have 0 hunger, but you didn't note it. That's still the same, that's fine. It's fine. But because you did not list your hunger, if you would like, you may re-roll the entire thing with the proper syntax. It would be 300.
It's marginally better.
Dia, you were saying?
I have no brawl at all.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So strength plus 1.
If it helps, Zach's in the same boat.
Grand total of 3. Excellent. So here's the situation. With everything moving as it always does, when the conflation of catastrophic events conspire, we are doomed to simply watch in horror. And the horror of the moment is driven home by the fact that Seth snaps out of the view of taking in everything in and adding those things, and there's invisible calculus that is being done over the scene and where they are, and watching Dia struggles causes them to leap into action, willfully and willingly putting themselves within range of those damned trees to assist Senator White, to assist their friend. There are moments that Zach and Dia have shared, small, meaningless to most moments that they have shared, from the actual full-fledged sharing of their fashion to the heartfelt moments of being willing to risk, to rise to the occasion, to face everything and rise, instead of face everything and run. They have utilized the impetus of death as a reason to become better, brighter, stronger versions of themselves, time and time again, together. While the Toreador, as stereotypically known, are a monolithic clan of dilettantes, perverts, and hedonists, there is an intelligence, a less than occasional cruelty, a drive towards success that keeps them always moving forward, testing the boundaries of things, trading in information to give themselves a better leg up, trading in favors and social power to improve their standing, to always fall forward, to rise to nearly every occasion. And while most physically minded kindred and physically minded ghouls and humans and all of that don't quite find the strength of will that is at the core of every flighty Toreador. In this moment, there's no better testament to that than the fact that with all the chips are on the line, when death is a very real possibility, when fear is as close to a rational thought as it is in this moment, that the two hedonists, that the two sensates band together to rise above the physical failings that they find beneath them. They struggle against powers physical and deadly, but they struggle together. And in their efforts, in their conjoined energies, despite the very real hand of fate on the scale, attempting to weigh the moment down and drag them into the never-ending darkness of true death, they tumble free of the edges of the trees, just as the would-be assassin who has gotten close enough where it is a sure shot at this range. With a shotgun, there's no way that either of the two individuals would ever be able to know what's happening. And then their cry of pain as the pink, grayish matter that was formerly inside their head tumbles across the grass. It is a trope that you can die before you realize it. That is very much the truth in most things, because especially in this particular case, the brain itself does not have any pain receptors. However, the skull, the skin surrounding it, and all the nerve endings therein do. And the gurgled attempt to cry for help, to attempt to try to continue surviving beyond this wounding, beyond this shot out of the dark, is there as the would-be assassin drops. All before they realize that they are dead. And as they hit the ground, we look back to where that shot came from. And Seth, half crouched, half fighting off branches that are still trying to impale him, is a little bit disappointed because he doesn't immediately hear the or the take cover or the resounding balance of his shot connecting. You normally would hear those things. Instead, you just hear it. And that means that the shot missed. It didn't hit anyone. Fucking hell. What are these guys, ninjas? I believe they are actual ninjas. This shit sucks. It's worse than trying to pick out a Nosferatu in the dark. And knowing that the shot went wide, knowing that there was no victim, knowing that the shell didn't land inside any of the many, clearly 4 or 5. You thought there was 5 or 6, but anyway, 4 or 5 would-be attackers still out there moving amongst the trees. What is it that is on Seth's mind and his attention to do?
The only thing on his mind is getting out of this bowl of trees and heading towards the away. He can't get a hold of Faustina because the trees are protecting her too well. The shots that are getting through, he doesn't think they're hitting anything, but there's less tree that way than there is towards Faustina. So he's going to follow the direction where he is shooting, and he's still got heightened senses, so he's going to take another shot, try to clear his path, but he's not going to run pell-mell. His hunger is under control still. So he's going to advance as quickly as he has to, but no quicker.
All right, sounds like a plan. You'd be so kind as to go ahead and roll your firing from the hip dexterity and fire on +1. And while that roll is happening, as Seth takes off from his position, instead of attempting to work to continue countering and moving and trying to backtrack Faustina, he's making his way toward the parking lot, using the trees as cover while he fights off their attempts to impale him all at once. And while that is happening, beneath the waves of that pool of death, beneath the waves that hide the great kindred love story that is the need to consume, the need to fill the void that resides within the unbeating heart of every kindred, to silence the beast so that its never-ending susurrus, whispers, yells, cries, and other attempts to garner not only attention but control go unheeded, go abated. Then you shut it the hell up for once, for a little bit of time, to be alone with yourself, to be your better monster, free of its demands. And in this, the connection of two kindred seeking the same thing. It's a bit of magic. It is it is as close to being perfectly in line with another soul as one can come. The battle for continued existence, the fight for immortality, free of being enslaved by one's own darker impulses. And somehow, in the midst of these two forces tangling, Muzan manages to bite through the clavicle. He manages to crush one of the vertebrae. He manages to bruise the ribs into actual pulphood. And in that small gasp, that surprise, that really moment, it gives him all the purchase he needs to be the, in fact, victor, to be the most savage and determined one of them. And like every breakup, no matter how good, that's a painful moment. It's a moment of realization, and it's the truth that we've ignored this whole entire time. All the moments that you've shared. And it's that battle with oneself to not feel that it has been wasted. It is a battle with oneself to understand that people are put into your lives for either you to be a lesson to them or them to be a lesson to you. And while that lesson can sometimes be a lifetime, there are others where that lesson happens far sooner. And this breakup, this desolation is a sooner rather than later. And the savagery that was the life's blood of Muzan, the savagery that allowed him to survive long enough to grow beyond the monster that he was created to be. Because that's the truth of it all. The breaking of who he was, the breaking of what he was part of the creation into being the monster that he became. And undoing the programming, encountering all of those very pointed, expert lessons was a battle unlike anything else he's ever faced. It's one thing to destroy another being, quite another to destroy yourself and rebuild yourself into something of your choosing. That strength and determination allows him to do the most monstrous things and be okay with it. Would you be so kind as to roll 1/3 your humanity plus willpower for me, please? And I will do that here. 5.
Remaining willpower, correct?
Yes. It is rare meeting a monster that is equally as dark and determined as yourself. And as you drain Sasha to that last drop and a hair breadth more, in that moment, as all that she is emptying into you. You all have a moment of calm. The water acting as a buffer between everything that is real and your own thoughts. And you all get an opportunity to sit across from each other in this floating nebulous nothingness. The true you all. And you realize, looking upon the soul that you are now taking into yourself, that it is exponentially darker than your own. Of all the things that you've done to kindred, human, and every step in between, the soul that you are taking into yourself has done so much more. And not because they were broken and trained to be, but because they were determined to survive beyond everything and willingly made those choices, willingly went into the dark, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is who is left to tell the tale. It is a rarity, and not one you're entirely fond of, knowing that there are darker souls out there in the world, knowing that there are darker souls that you are now part of. And the twisted fact of the matter is, while you didn't dislike Zach, you considered him an associate. But as all that Sasha is empties into you, you know what Zach is like in those quiet moments. You know what Zach is like when he opens himself to you and shares all that he is. You know how intrinsically, when Zach is in love, there is nothing that he would not do. There's no evil he would overlook. There's no good that he could not find. And there's nothing that he would not do to attempt to reciprocate that small flicker of goodness with the entirety of his being. There is no lack of attention. There's no lack of the expressions of his want. There is nothing that he would not risk for those that he loves. And there's some strange semblance of suicidal honor in that. And in that moment, Zach moves from merely an associate, a friend of a friend, if you will, to someone that you know you would be honored to have the attentions of. And that makes you feel dirty, because you have love for someone you've never actually had the opportunity to really get to know. You have love for someone that threatens your own sense of logic. But you know that as you empty Sasha's soul into yourself, that underneath all the twisted evil that they were willing, able, capable, and bent towards doing, that there was some twisted, dark semblance of, as far as they were aware, true, lasting love for Zach. And then the cold sets in.
I have an idea.
Mm-hmm. And that idea is?
Blush of life.
Such a simple answer. And as you be so kind as go ahead and make that rouse roll, as Muzan channels the last vestiges of their grasp on humanity and they will the Vitae to move, there is a double-edged sword to the circulation and the movement of what little heat he is able to rouse within himself. It is that in doing so, the nerve endings of the skin come to life, or as close as they can. It is the nerves and the teeth, now chattering against themselves, come to life. It is now that you can feel the bite of the cold. It is now that you can feel how frigid this pool of death you are in actually is. Gone is the slow creeping sensation. Risen is the cold that is so frozen that it feels as if you are being burned. Your fingertips feel as if they will never be warm again. Your ears are filled with the gunk and darkness that is all of this frigid, frozen death. But it does buy you a few moments. It does give you a few seconds. If you can outlast the pain and find your way out. And with those considerations in mind of finding their way out, the body line between yourselves and the tree line is a tactically geared individual that the trees are not bothering to attack. The trees are not bothering to pull this former person into their midst as if they know that it is a waste or that they are at least one of their own. And looking on that body and looking from each other to your surroundings, sprawled on the grass just outside of the tree's reach. And you know you are just outside of the tree's reach because they are continuing to try to pull you back into their midst. They are continuing to try to stake you. They are continuing trying to absorb you as some twisted Christmas ornament amongst their own limbs. What are you, Dia and Zach, intending to do?
Jack's still trying to pull himself together after basically pulling Dia out of there. He's looking at what's going on in front of him, looking what's going on around him. Basically he's trying to figure out what's going on now and how to just get the heck out of here.
What Dia wants to do is look at the body of the guy that got shot and see if he recognizes the uniform, because I have a feeling she might, with what she saw in Milwaukee. But yeah, she wants to see if she recognizes him as he's trying to get back to the car.
Okay. Quick appraisal would be, excuse me, wits plus insight. A more detailed appraisal, which means you'd spend more time closer to the trees and getting a good view of the person that is now deceased, would be wits and investigation. Which would you attempt?
With an insight, she's not going to stick around.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So go ahead and give that quick roll for me. While that is happening, Muzan, are you attempting to swim to the surface?
Assuming he's already finished off Sasha, then yes.
All right, that would be a strength and athletics. You are at a -1 penalty, however. Nothing like frozen limbs prohibit the ability to swim.
And just to confirm...
Yes, it's still active.
0 hunger?
Yes. All right. And Seth, firing from the hip and making your way out of the trees is not the most difficult thing that you have ever done. You know that. You know somewhere, you know in your heart of hearts that it is not the most difficult thing that you have ever done. However, it is very nearly the top of the most difficult things that you have ever attempted. Every attempt on your part to dip has the trees responding in kind. The fact that you are using them as cover as you are making your way out also increases the difficulty because you move towards a tree and they move towards you to try to pull you into themselves. The roots work towards tripping your steps as you get past them. The limbs attempt to pierce every portion of your person that they can. It is a fight uphill while carrying a mountain on your back. And as you fire to distract and dismay, to potentially drop the targets that are out there, only adding to the number of things that you are doing. And while it is the believed idea that we as the entities and beings can multitask, however, we only have 100% focus, and every time we add another thing to it, we have to split our focus. We have to juggle more things at once, and we all believe that we are multitasking, but the truth of the matter is we are doing several things in quick succession, and we fool ourselves into thinking that we're doing them all at the same time. And I believe that we have the ability because, well, we live in an age where you have to multitask. We have to have 7 screens going at once. We have to have texting happening while we are live chatting. We have to. There's not enough time in the day. And Seth very much is a more modern kindred than most others. So he is prone to attempting to multitask and has gotten quite good at his 10, 15% here, his 25% there, his 5% there, being more than enough. But in this situation, the multitasking of carrying out so many particular things at once distracts him from the reality that, fuck, this was a well-planned, well-executed attempt to assassinate several kindred at once. This was a death trap, and the sheer fact of being able to escape the trees, even if death follows immediately after, puts you in the top 10 percentile. And since not gracefully, but fortuitously, out into the ground, out onto the space, just outside of the tree's limb, finding Dia looking over a body, and Zach standing slightly in a fugue state, realizing what they are covered in, and the bits and bobs of bodies that you are stumbling over, what could have caused them to end in such a manner. What is it that Seth is attempting?
Well, he took his last shot. He's gonna... he's an ex-soldier and an ex-cop. His only priority right now is clear his line of fire, which means getting away from the trees. And hopefully not get shot by the minions that are about. But he's going to continue to advance and controlled fire until he has a clear shot on Faustina, at which point he will redirect fire on her. And if he has a clear shot on her, he's going to stop and aim. So it would be a composed shot instead of a hip fire. But until he's cleared the trees, he's going to repeat. Move forward, move forward, move forward, don't get stabbed, shoot somebody. Or shoot in the direction where he thinks somebody is. But once he sees Faustina, he's going to stop forward motion and take one aimed, controlled shot. Because she's the problem. And distraction is the solution.
Which means I'm going to go ahead and roll your composure plus firearms for it, please.
Okay, so she pops out in front. Yay! Finally, Jesus. I've been trying to get a clean shot for 3 rounds now. Exposure plus firearms. Shit. Wrong screen.
There is a moment in every movie where the horror that has been chasing the virginal survivor girl is killed. There's a moment where the videotape is passed to the next person. There is a moment when the doll is thrown into the furnace. There is a moment where the android robot that's been chasing you this entire time is crushed by a metal smelter or some other such. And there's a collective sigh of relief. The monster is dead. The demon is no longer on your trail. And that sigh is always met with the dread of knowing that the hand rises up out of the plate, that the robot comes pulling itself out of the crusher. The doll that was tossed into the fire was the wrong one, that the big evil, the horror that's chased the hero this whole entire time is either impervious, resistant, or otherwise gifted a second chance to harass, harangue, and otherwise terrorize the protagonist. And spotting Dia and Zach and whirling, catching sight of Faustina moving amongst the trees. Seth pauses and fires. The shot is true. It moves from the muzzle of his gun as if it was guided by the hand of God himself. It speeds through the trees, breaking limbs, slamming into the area near artery to part of Faustina's face, rocketing through it and out the back. The body of Faustina drops, but just before it hits the ground, the tree limbs raise it up, lifting it into the boughs above your head, moving it through, and you realize it is not the trees. Her limbs have grown rictus long, all seemings of a average bipedal form falling away. The dress that looked as if it was a designer original now appearing to be nothing more than rags hung about a sickly, stickly, spindly frame. Fingertips longer than the average forearm, toes to match, and the skin, which before had seemed relatively lively, a dull Asian aspected shade of tan, now takes on the ashen look of a newly dead corpse, something that had been allowed to lie in the sun for far longer than it should. The veins beneath, hidden by the healthy hue of the sun-kissed skin, now standing out in bas relief like cords of steel beneath the dead papery flesh. And the movement that you thought were the trees lifting the body into its boughs, moving with a speed that defies all reasonable expectations. Having seen Dia move, having seen the speed inherent in certain members of the sensates, this puts that to a semblance of shame. Because in the thin branches that should not be able to carry weight, Faustina is bounding and bouncing and moving with a alacrity that makes an attempt to shoot extremely hazardous. There's a better chance the wind would catch the bullet and send the slug back into you. The raspy laughter has ended However, something else has taken its place. A keening wail, as if there is a spell being worked with the speed of Mercury himself. Things have gone from the frying pan right into the fire. And if matters could not be worse, breaking the icy surface of the man-made lake that families have been begun around, proposals of matrimony have been given, and most recently, pacts with sources and spirits infernal have happened. Muzan comes tearing free of the body. You've never seen the balance of Muzan looking as horrific as it is now. He looks like a body that had been set adrift during an ice storm. He looks as if he is dying of hypothermia, which cellularly in the flesh that he is housed within is actually accurate. And to make matters worse, Dia, you recognize the face, or what's left of it, not the uniform. The face you saw at the club with Drew and Sasha. The face you didn't really pay too much attention to. It wasn't extraordinarily handsome. She wasn't extraordinarily beautiful. She's that unassuming middle ground that should not have been allowed into such a hip happening club, especially being because it was clear that she was not partaking of the decoctions from the bar. The waters sitting in her glass as she moved and watched didn't lessen. It was just being held as a distraction, as a cover.
These were definitely Sasha's people that were her backup to taking us out.
Definitely.
Looking towards Zach and Seth, after seeing him kind of come through the woods. I don't know where everybody else is, but I am thinking we need to get out of here.
Yes, now, if we ever want to see the moon again.
Looking towards Seth again. Where's Frost?
Muzan. Seth.
As Muzan is clawing his way out of the water, he is breathing heavily, and once he's completely out of the water, he just flops onto his back and just shouts, "Fuck!" All that because I fucking missed.
And as you make your displeasure known to all of the silent angels hiding behind the death that is a night-bound sky, you catch movement amongst the tree limbs. Something tall and spindly, something with limbs that could be easily mistaken for tree limbs themselves, and a wailing keen, which is actually Gaelic being spoken at such a high rate of speed that it is impossible to discern from simple crying. Not that you're Tremere, but you've been exposed to them often enough that you know that their real, true, hidden language is a mixture of Amharic, Kosa, Greek, and several other languages, including ancient Gaelic. And that's exactly what's being said and spoken in such a high rate of speed that it would be impossible to track which exact words are being said. Every time while a hunt with your friends, your former coterie, your pack, if you will, the preceding events after such a will working were always akin to setting off a nuclear bomb to hide an arson attempt. You were with your friends and associates, your coterie, your former pack, in a mansion on the east side of Chicago. You were all the way out there, very near Rockford. And your leading Tremere, your spiritual guide, if you would, began chanting with such a speed as that, and all of the 17 bodies that you all left strewn about the place began to dance and convulse as their blood, the remaining few droplets left to them, began to combust and the bodies be consumed into each of you all as additional blood. The scene looked like a Jackson Pollock painting, but there was no bodies to prove that anything else had happened there except for someone perhaps exploded a paint can. Well, that doesn't seem like much to the average person, but erasing bodies out of existence is no small feat. And every instance of language being used in the manner that you hear in the trees above your head have been equally impossible. So Seth, Dia, Zach, Muzan, what are our intentions?
I just want to make sure I have a clearness of thought here. The trees are still trying to kill us, right?
No.
Oh, they stopped trying to kill us?
Yes. Stopped cold. 1 second, they were attempting everything they could, and then the next, they seem to be trees. And that keening wail that is echoing out of Faustina has reached a favorite pitch. You know, there's maybe 2-3 octaves left, but then whatever that they're doing to reach completion, and as they're moving amongst the boughs of the trees, you know that there is another shoe. There is a sword hanging by a gossamer thread over your head.
Well, she's well and truly invested.
Muzan shouts to the others. All right, everyone, listen up. We got 2 choices here. We run together, or we kill her now together. But whatever we do it all together, or it ain't gonna work.
Well, far be it from Seth to argue with that. He's going to brace himself one more time. Since the trees are no longer trying to kill him, let's try to light her fire up. God bless America. Thirst has a special hatred for me.
Well, you all have Seth's answer as he begins firing off the remaining shells in his sidearm. What is it that you all are intending to do? What is it that you are attempting to do? What is it that you would like to do? This is the last of 2 potential actions.
Muzan still has his other disciplines up, right? Or is that? Okay. So then seeing Seth's answer, he answers by leaping into or trying to leap at Faustina again and finish what he started.
And seeing their answers, Zach, who still has fleetness up, attempts to rush in and basically hold her in position so she can't try to get away.
Okay. Go ahead, roll dexterity and brawl for me, Zach. And strength and brawl moves on. And we already have Seth's action already rolled. Dia, what is it that you're attempting seeing this all take place?
Dia is facing a blue streak because they wanted to leave. This is ridiculous. They're wondering where Frost is. They watched Lothair die. They are not wanting to fight anymore tonight. But seeing as how everybody else ran in, she is going to pick up the gun off the man that's on the ground and do her best to aim.
Okay.
Not gonna go all in on this and also Blood Surge to boost strength.
Okay. Just be so kind as to go ahead and roll your dexterity and athletics for me. No, I'm sorry, dexterity and firearms, Dia.
Is it too greedy to use willpower?
Oh no, you believe that Muzan would do everything he can to end this as best as he can with the help of his coterie and make it happen. In the grand scheme of things, when everything is binarily metered out, when the tale of the tape is told, no one is ever quite sure of what took place that day. The little play lot, the little forest preserve, the romantic little garden in the middle of the south suburbs, the respite from all modern banality, a place where the urban and the natural landscape conspire together to make a place where people can come together. When the tale is told, or whispered as the case usually is, the cabinet of Senator White decided to annex the barony of Baron Faustina McEwen. And in the doing, when the smoke cleared, they had done just that. In the exchange of blows, in the keening wail that was a spell in the offing, shots moving through the air akimbo, Zach leaping into the fore, putting their body in harm's way, Dia looking very much like a well-dressed remixed version of John Rambo, screaming and pulling the trigger and firing into the general space of where the Baron should come to a light. Lots of expletives. Lots of shoving one's middle finger into fate's face and saying, "This is our time. We demand blood." And for once, Perhaps for the last time, perhaps for the first of many times to follow. Fate bends a knee. And it's not an instantaneous thing, despite Faustina's age. It is very close to a magic spell happening in slow motion, an iceberg drifting into the ocean. The body stops moving. The trees, which were formerly alive and determined to end all of their existences, are no longer such demonic entities. The hidden form of what Faustina actually was beneath it all, the corpse-like stick woman dropping to the ground, sounding all too like a bag of kindlings being dropped. Dead wood sticks, even. And as their body meets the ground, and all of their age begins to show, the corded veins carrying Bate to and from, the noxious gas erupting from their cracked and torn torso, seeping into the air, their face taking on a symboling less monstrous, and all the more so because it is locked into a death's mask. A semblance of its human seeming present even amidst all the horror that is its face, its maw of endless teeth, sunken eyes, his nose slightly reappearing as the false seeming takes place. And in the matter of the next few moments, all that Faustina was, could be, blows away like a bad memory. The bodies falling to the ground, those not taken into the final resting place of all things, death, those not changed into specters, those not subsumed by the mist, nor killed by the trees, their bodies hit the ground. Amongst them, Jerome, Frost, one of the gangrel that Lothair had enlisted, and two of the 6 men that Sasha had brought as a backup to the plan, hit the ground. As alive as they ever had been in some cases, and still in torpor for others. And now comes the hard part. What do you all do? The humans are witnesses to kindred activity. Frost is in torpor. The gangrel is, well, worse for wear, but coming back to himself, which unfortunately signifies not only a certain amount of age, but also a certain hardiness that others you wished could have had. And time.
Lady Senator, if you want to head back to the van, I'm going to deal with the gangrel and Frost. And as he's walking back towards, he says it loud so it gets a lot of people's attention. As he walks past the nearest human to him, he just looks at him for a quick second, snaps his fingers and says, "And you forget everything." And I use cloud memory.
In light of the trauma, there is no road necessary. Consider it a foregone conclusion as the mind reels and tries to make some sense of what it is that they were in the midst of. Adrenaline has the ability to make everything seem slower or faster or more rational than it actually was.
Zach, if you want to deal with our other human friend, and Seth is going to go and grab up Frost and check on the gangrel.
The gangrel's coming back to himself. He was one of the few quiet members of the pack that had come to assist. Their coterie clearly broken. He is doing his best to not give sway or give in to the beast that demands vengeance for vengeance sake. There's no one to collect vengeance from, yet beast is anything if and everything but rational.
That's why Seth is going over there and trying to keep everyone else away.
Okay, and what exactly could Zach do with the human that Seth is not handling? 'Cause Zach doesn't have Dominate.
Presence or feeding, because that causes disorientation.
Okay, I have Lingering Kiss, and Entrancement.
There you go.
Sorry about my mom. She and my dad are going back and forth from 2 different floors.
But yeah, I think entrancement would. I mean, awe might be enough if you're just going to feed and make him stupid. But entrancement, I believe, does vastly more than that.
Okay, Entrancement. Rouse check. Rouse check's just 1 die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna try to use a rouse check to throw up entrancement. Why, Thirst? Why?
Well, I mean, I didn't shoot that one yet, so, just throwing it out there. He's not leaking or anything.
So,
Muzan,
I basically gained hunger, but managed to throw it up, right?
Yes. And just like that, with the snap of your finger, the noise that gums up the works that is always there running, distraction in the back of your head is back, and the voice of need is there. Dia, Muzan, while Seth and Zach are working towards cleaning up things, what are you all doing?
Yeah, just to take a quick, quiet moment and look back towards the place in which was lost. And have a moment of silence for that, and then go get into the van because, not made for this.
Muzan's also kind of having a moment of silence. Breathing heavily, even though he knows he doesn't need to. It still feels right for him to do after going through so much just now and reliving some intense memories and creating some new ones.
There was a moment. All the world seemed lined against you. Every business venture that you had put yourself into for the last 6 months had run up against a wall. Those stupid blue bloods in the city, with their claws and fingers and so many pies, have cut off or had cut off most of your resources. It was a temporary setback, but in the moment it felt as if the entire world was crushing down on you. You were all but ready to wait out the night, and as death took you to go up to the roof and sit down and watch the sunrise. That's how bad things were. And then Zach was there. That stupid grin, and he's running his fingers through his hair, and that stupid fucking acoustic guitar. The man makes good money. Why couldn't he buy a new guitar? But no, that stupid acoustic guitar. And he sat with you. He knew what you were thinking. You're going to go up to the roof. You're going to go disappear permanently. But something about him knowing made him unwilling to let you go. And if you were going to go, he wanted to be the last thing that you saw. And as you shake that memory off, because you know that wasn't you, you know you weren't there, but it's hard to deny the feelings of someone who's willing to give their all to you. Kind of a fucking bitch.
When that memory comes up to him, he starts shaking his head as if trying to actually shake the memory out. And then he just looks at Zach. Zach?
And Zach, who's cleaning up the mess, looks over to Muzan.
I'm sorry tonight didn't go exactly how you wanted it to.
I wasn't expecting it to do. I was expecting at least some of us to die, myself among them.
Well, in that case, I'm happy it didn't go the way you expected it to.
And as cleanup happens, and states of being are verified as relatively safe as you can have them to be, and thoughts are changed as to what actually took place, and the fact of all the death that actually took place here settles in as Muzan and Dia sit in the van quietly amongst themselves, and then Frost's still torpid body is brought towards the van, realizing that it will take time and considerably more blood than even Seth's increased blood potency can do. And the coterie makes their way away from this charnel field of death. A realization happens as you all are sure that there's nothing left of Faustina. However, as the body hit the ground and a noxious cloud of whatever it was escaped her, no one investigated to find out what was happening with it. What did it do? What spell did you all end just in the nick of time that still had all of that energy wrapped into it that was simply let go? And as you all make your way back to the Piscateers, the sanctum sanctorum of the coterie, the place where you all are at least moderately secure in the safety therein, partially because of Calabalarshi, partially because over the last few weeks and the few friendships that you've made with Seferino, and partially because, well, it's fucking Layden, who cares at this point? You've survived hell. You've stared the devil in his face and beat him in his own game, and have come out the other side. Stranger. The loss means all of those things swirling together to clearly and definitively say enough is enough. So, I'd like to say thank you for a lovely session. It has been a joy. I will see you all next session. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thanks for the game.